And we can see here definitively that they put out fake news, that multiple organizations, even Reuters, has a fake story. Why? Because they just trust the Washington Post. I really do not like the Washington Post. The idea of fake news has been a subject of discussion in our political climate over the past couple of years, particularly around the election. People are asking whether or not fake news contributed to Donald Trump's success in the presidential election. And because of the prevalence, or I should say because of the interest and fear over fake news, Facebook announced not too long ago that they would start tagging articles that were disputed and working with large news organizations to fact check certain stories and actually tag these stories on Facebook. But now Facebook has announced that they are doing away with the tag. Why? Because when they put a disputed tag on a story, it makes people more likely to believe it's true. Business Insider UK reports Facebook is scrapping its system of flagging fake news because it had the opposite effect to what we intended. According to a post from Facebook, academic research on correcting misinformation has shown that putting a strong image like a red flag next to an article may actually entrench deeply held beliefs. The opposite effect to what we intended. Related articles, by contrast, are simply designed to give more context, which our research has shown is a more effective way to help people get to the facts. Indeed, we've found that when we show related articles next to a false news story, it leads to fewer shares than when the disputed flag is shown. In a separate Medium post, the 3 Facebook staffers leading the firm's effort against fake news wrote that giving people more context meant they shared less fake news. Unfortunately, neither the disputed tags nor the additional context stopped people from actually clicking on fake news. During these tests, we learned that although click-through rates on the hoax articles don't meaningfully change between the 2 treatments, we did find that the related articles treatment led to fewer shares of the hoax article than the disputed flag treatment. And in my opinion, that makes the most sense. Having a news organization simply tag something as disputed or calling it fake is not an appropriate response, in my opinion, because often we have conflicting narratives from groups that do not share the same politics. Obviously, Huffington Post and Breitbart are going to be conflicted on various news stories. And of course, what is Facebook going to prefer as real news? More likely to be the Huffington Post than Breitbart. Related articles makes the most sense because people need more context. Sure, people might still share fake news. They might still read fake news. One thing I've always told everybody is the best thing you can do is read as much as possible. So if you see that Huffington Post article, read the Breitbart article. The Breitbart article will probably link to another article, and you'll find yourself going down the rabbit hole, as it were. But what you want to do is try and find the root reporting of where these stories come from, and then you can start to weed out the nonsense. Now, personally, I'm glad they're doing away with the disputed tag, because Facebook decided to work with large news publishers. And simply because a publisher is large does not mean they are correct. And let's look at a really good example of this, something that I find absolutely disturbing. You may have heard that not too long ago, a report came out that the CDC had banned several words, that the Trump administration had actually ordered the CDC not to use certain words in their budget proposals. Well, guess what? The story is not true. The story originally came from the Washington Post, but was picked up far and wide. Here, we have Vox. CDC banned from using 7 words, including science-based, in budget documents. It goes on to say that the Trump administration has reportedly banned officials at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention from using these 7 words in budget documents, a move that some are calling downright Orwellian. Yes, that's not true. And let's check out Reuters. Trump administration bans selected words at health agencies. Paper. Once again, citing the Washington Post. And we can go on to CNN. Trump's administration's 7 banned words are an attack on science. Now we have the opinions coming in. A fake news story was widely reported, which led to numerous op-eds decrying the Trump administration for making this move, and it is all based on fake news. Now, the CDC director, Dr. Brenda Fitzgerald, tweeted, "I want to assure you there are no banned words at CDC. We will continue to talk about all our important public health programs." She goes on to say, Health and Human Services statement addressing media reports. The assertion that HHS has banned words is a complete mischaracterization of discussions regarding the budget formulation process. HHS will continue to use the best scientific evidence available to improve the health of all Americans. If the director of the CDC is not a good enough source to tell you that there are no banned words, I don't know what you're looking for. I don't understand why the Washington Post and their sources are more correct, are more likely to be reporting the truth than the actual director of the CDC and the spokesperson for the Health and Human Services. Now, following these statements, Vox put out another op-ed. The CDC's word ban may be politics as usual, but it's still concerning. Keep in mind, Vox hasn't removed the initial reporting, even though they have a new story updating what actually happened. They still cite the Washington Post. CDC policy analysts at headquarters in Atlanta were briefed about the forbidden words at a Thursday meeting with officials who oversee the budget. The words, which were not to be used in documents circulated in the administration and Congress ahead of the budget proposal for fiscal year 2019, included evidence-based, science-based, vulnerable, entitlement, diversity, transgender, and fetus. Keep in mind, in this paragraph, they are no longer using the word banned. But let's not forget, Vox reporting from only a few days ago still uses the word banned, even after the CDC director said it's not true. This story still exists. This story headline is still there. Reuters still has the same language. CNN still has the same language, even though there are no banned words. Why are these companies still running these stories? Why have they not been corrected? Why are they still running op-eds, even when those op-eds remove the word banned because they recognize it was wrong in the first place? In fact, the New York Times later reported that science-based and evidence-based were not firmly on a watch list, as the Washington Post suggested. Even in the op-ed from Vox, they say the New York Times even corrected the Washington Post. But are these stories being changed? No. Because Vox is still running the same story. They didn't fix it. Even when Vox has a new story updating, including the fact that these words were not even included on a watch list, as whatever that means, it's still here. It's still called Orwellian. And this is where the trickle-down happens, where fake news persists and we see the pundits start playing to their audience. Sally Cohn tweeted, "Dictators ban words," the day these stories were published. Now, I can't definitively say she's talking about this story, but I think it's fair to say that's the case. And this has 38,697 retweets and over 100,000 likes. Fake news from the mainstream media. Fake news that they haven't updated. Fake news that even when their own reporting contradicts their early reports, they have not updated. So why am I glad that Facebook is removing the disputed tag? Because these news organizations are often cited as being true. But as I have just shown you, the CDC director, this story is fake news. Vox still running the story, even though a later article from Vox disputes their own reporting. There's no internal consistency. Now, I don't want to take this to say that every single story put out by these media companies is fake. Certainly not. It's just that they make mistakes that don't get corrected. And the argument is often presented to me that mainstream news organizations make mistakes. Of course they do. And they're called fake news because of it. They're not called fake news because they made a mistake. They're called fake news because they don't correct their mistakes. Because these stories still exist on all of these sites, even after the CDC said no. You know, people ask me, Tim, how do we fight through the fake news? And I don't know. Because I'm relying on many of these same news organizations for my news, and we can see here definitively that they put out fake news. That multiple organizations, even Reuters, has a fake story. Why? Because they just trust the Washington Post. I really do not like the Washington Post. What's the solution? I honestly don't know if there's one. And I also don't think this is a new phenomenon. Simply because we can catch the Washington Post publishing a fake story and then everyone else reports on it doesn't mean this is new. It's probably been the same forever. In fact, things have only gotten better technically. The fact that I can even show you why their reporting is bad and how it impacts the political climate, how the left reacts to these fake news stories, and how these fake news stories still exist on websites like Vox, even though Vox contradicts their own reporting. The story still exists. Now, there's a lot of reasons why that story still exists. I'm not going to say definitively why, but let's just put it this way. If Sally Cohn is going to get 40,000 retweets on her dictators ban words, imagine how many clicks that CDC story got. Are they going to delete it now? Why? They'd lose money. Leave it up. It's still getting clicks, still getting shares. Sure, it's fake news. Sure, they could correct it. But are people going to click on a story that says correction? It ain't true? Nah, probably not. So, honestly, I think this is just a case of these news organizations don't care. People at Vox don't care to go back and correct this article from 6 days ago, and neither do any of the other news organizations. So people are still going to see these stories. They're still going to believe it's true. And this is just another grain of sand in the heap, because this is not the only time a fake news story has come out from mainstream media. Just in the past couple of weeks, CNN reporting on WikiLeaks that the Trump administration received access to WikiLeaks emails 10 days before the publication, fake news. Brian Ross reporting Michael Flynn was ordered to contact the Russians during the Trump campaign by Trump himself, fake news. And people will still believe this, because articles will still persist, and the pundits won't correct their Twitter accounts. They won't correct their statements. There are still people who have never corrected the WikiLeaks story from CNN. Journalists with hundreds of thousands of followers that I know personally still have not corrected this nonsense. And this is one of the biggest problems we are facing. It feels like the world is really breaking down, but I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to elaborate significantly more on this on my second channel. So from here, we're going to go more to philosophy and my personal opinion. So this kind of ends that story. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and we will keep the conversation going. If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Timcast. And if you want to support my work, go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available every day at 4 p.m. In the description below is the link to my second channel, and around 4:30, I'm going to have another video that elaborates where I just left off, talking about the future, our culture, and the Matrix, and what's going on, and some personal opinions on everything. So go to my second channel, subscribe there. It's also a backup channel, so it's important that you're subscribed there at any rate, because if anything happens to this channel, that's where I'll be. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in just a few minutes on channel 2.